welcome back to a Total Drama Reboot tier list and ranking video. Now, as you can see, there is already a tier list on here. That is because this is how I had set it up from the first season. This time tiers are ordered. The reason we are starting here on the tier list already, I want just a little point of reference for those who didn't watch it or those who need a refresher, or where my thoughts and feelings on these characters stand after Season 1, but also I want to kind of rearrange things a little bit. So, while my thoughts and opinions on these characters haven't really changed, but since the time I made the videos based purely on Season 1, how I would place them based on those opinions has changed. And there's only really two characters that I want to change, which is Axel for the start. I think she was funny and great for those 2 episodes, but again, she only had those 2 episodes, and thinking back, it feels more right to put her in C tier with the other 2 reboots. Because she doesn't have a lot of screen time or characterization outside of episode 2 in Season 1. The next character that I want to move is Chase. I still think he's a good character, despite what people may think. But I still think he's a funny character, but he just... A tier was a bit much. He's not the best character. He has problems. But he's funny, and the reason I put him so high in the first place because people didn't really acknowledge the potential and humor that Chase brought. My cat sure loves to walk across the fucking keyboard. Anyway, with cat interruptions out of the way, let's move on to my thoughts on the season and ranking characters on the tier. So, I guess we'll just go in boot order then. So, to start things off, we got Scary Girl. Now, I want to mention here when I place these, my sole Season 2 opinions are also going to be my overall opinions on these characters. They kind of just line up that way, so... Scary Girl goes back to B. She has a shtick that ran for 4 episodes. She didn't overstay her welcome. It kind of continued here, the direction they took her character with her trying to be normal and failing miserably because she's just too scary girl was a really funny thing to do, and she worked perfectly as the first boot of the season and didn't run out her gag because of it, so solid character, very gimmicky, understandable if you don't like her. I did find her to be funny, but I don't think she's the best. So, solid B. Love her or hate her, she plays a role and does it well and doesn't overstay her welcome. For our next person, the second boot of the season was Chase. And yeah, I'm gonna have to keep Chase in B tier. Probably behind Scary Girl. Chase was... Nah, I'm gonna put him above Scary Girl. Chase was actually really funny in that episode. Now, his whole plot with Emma, they kind of just dropped it and had them break up again, which good, because that was one of the worst plots of Season 1. Nobody liked it, and that was obvious. The worst moments Chase had was the romance plot with Emma. Like, when they started getting back together, nobody liked that. I didn't like that. It's funny when he needs to be, and I think this episode really shows how Chase can be funny when he's done well. It's an accurate portrayal of a stereotype, for better or for worse, and he's just a solid character through and through because of that. A character that you love to hate, essentially. And I don't really have much else to say that I haven't already said about him from the first season, so I guess it's on to the third boot, which is Millie, who... kinda. I think I will keep her an A. Her plot kinda... Her plot works in this season. It's basically a miniature version of her whole plot with Priya from the first season, but with Damien this time. Honestly, it kind of backpedals a little bit on her character growth with Priya because of that, but also, I think it was fine. Millie wasn't really a character that was super important for this season. I don't think there's a lot much they could do with her. At least enough to have her have longevity. Either way, it makes sense for her being an early boot in this season. I just don't see any way she could possibly go further, and if she was given an actual serious plot, it probably would have had to been cut short because she wouldn't be able to survive long enough to see the whole thing to fruition. And that kind of sucks, but I still like Millie. Everything about her is fine. She's just a fine character. Good story, good companion for Priya. I don't know what else to say. She's fine. That's all. Alright, next up is Emma. Now, I'm kind of disappointed Emma went out as early as she did, because they were kind of setting her up to have, like, an alliance with Priya and Caleb, but dropped her to solely focus on Priya and Caleb. But Emma's elimination was alright, kind of sad. Kind of sad funny, in a sense. Emma's a character that really deserves better. Great. And my ranking for her doesn't change. And it's just a shame because it really feels like Z was set up to go in this episode until they had, at the last second, Emma messing things up. Because of Priya. Because of my cat walking across the keyboard. And kind of taking the blame for it. It's weird how a lot of my problems with the season stem from Z, but Z himself isn't actually the problem. I'll get to it more when we get to him. Alan, here's the shocker. Nichelle, spoilers, is the only character in the lower tiers that isn't changing my opinion. I'm actually surprised the direction they went with her character. I thought they were going to set her up for redemption, but they actually doubled down and made her a sad, funny character about her just being kind of a egotistical flop who just doesn't really care much about anything other than her career and her bank account. I was really hoping more for Nichelle, but it also okay with the direction they went with her. It's kind of weird. Kind of weird. Michelle is like the only character in this cast who doesn't really have any sort of interaction or dynamic with any of the rest of the cast in any meaningful way. Except sort of Julia, because Julia's responsible for getting her eliminated in Season 2. Next up on the list is Bowie, who is completely unchanged from my opinions on last season. Bowie kind of just stayed the same, and the direction they went with him is good for this season, because they focused on his and Raj's relationship and didn't mess it up, which they tend to have a track record with these series to kind of mess up relationships the following season after they've been set up. And they didn't. It kinda went out when they're still together. They're still together, they're still wholesome. Raj and Bowie, it's honestly one of the best total drama ships. Kinda got to see a little more out of it. And like, I'm not good at words, blah blah blah. Gay makes neuron activation when I see it in show. S tier for Bowie. That is all. Access to the next elimination, which is Axel. And she improves. I kind of like what they did. Axel's character development this season is a little simple. She's still the hardcore mean girl type that she was in the first season, but we actually learned that she's a little more grounded in reality than characters that really play into stereotype like her are, and has a softer side, like in episode 4 where she learns about her love for poetry, and then there's her whole relationship with Ripper, which people are kind of mixed on. People say it's kind of just Jeff and Bridget again, but honestly it's more than that. They do a lot more than just make out constantly in the challenges. They still make out a lot in the challenges and during the competition, but like they actually do other stuff romantically and challenge focus wise than Jeff and Bridget did in their 2 episodes of Total Drama Action. And I think she was actually pretty good. Good enough to be moved up to the very bottom of B tier, but not enough solo things from herself to really kind of pull her up meaningfully in the ranks. Just enough to say that, yeah, she's a character that I would love to see compete again, if only for 1 episode, because she's kind of entertaining. Which leaves us to Ripper. Now then, this might be a very controversial opinion, but Ripper was really good this season. If you've seen My Way, you already know this, but if you haven't or you're new here, Ripper went from like my most hated total drama character to he's actually really funny and likable for a mean character. Like, a lot of my problems with Ripper in the first season and why he was my most hated character at the time was due to the over-reliance on farting. It was down to a fetishy inclusion, it felt like it was not poorly disguised. It was just blatantly thrown in the face. Somebody on the staff's fart fetish was how Ripper felt in the first season. And in this season, didn't do anything with it. He still had him be gross, mainly with his relationship with Axel, but it was kind of gross humor that isn't, like, gross, in a sense. Like, the kind of gross out humor that actually works, that's tasteful. And they only had one fart joke the entire season, which was the one where Ripper and Axel were attached by the butt with sap and had to fart to get pulled apart. And that was the one fart joke that actually worked, because he didn't do the normal thing. They didn't do the normal thing of having the green fart gas. It just had a bubble explode and launch them separately. And the whole punchline for the joke was Ripper falling in love with Axel just because she asked him if he could fart. Which set up their romantic relationship in this season, which is one of the funniest couples in the show on a comedic standpoint. I really love the Rick Axel, Rick. I kiss. They do that a lot, and that's good. So the next contestant to be ranked is Z, who, like Bowie, is just more of the same, and that's not a bad thing. He doesn't reach his peaks that he does in Season 1, but that's kind of to be expected. Especially since he wasn't as in the spotlight. No, that's wrong. Z was used for a different purpose than just purely comedy this season. So him not being as funny as his best episodes in Season 1 makes sense, but it doesn't hurt him at all. And his main thing this season was his whole plot with not blabbing about the whole prelib situation, which he did to cause drama after the merge, as we need drama. And I don't think Z was the right character for it. I understand wanting to keep him on longer for comedy, but he wasn't the right character for it. And someone else that went out pre-merge, like Emma or Millie, could have potentially played the role that Z did in the whole prelib thing and get some needed character development out of it. And that's kind of like the only bad thing I really have to say about Z, which isn't anything about him himself. So Z keeps his spot at the top of S tier. The next boot, and probably the saddest one, is MK, who I am moving up to A tier above all these three. I'm putting Ripper above Millie. Fuck it, I'm putting Ripper above Emma. Now that MK was one of the best parts of this whole season. I don't think anybody would even argue about that. MK was funny. She had an engaging plot. Her relationship with Julia is really fun to watch and oddly wholesome for being sort of frenemies. And we got a new ship out of it. which is not official yet, potentially. But, like, nobody would complain if they made MK and Julia kiss in a future season. And also, I want a PSA. MK Julia is a horrible, horrible ship name. It does not roll off the tongue well. And I suggest that we, as a community, start referring to this ship either as Junk or JK. Because that is so much better than fucking Imkulia. Nobody says Imkulia. That is horrid. And I'm almost tempted to put MK in F tier just purely for the ship name alone. You know what? MK goes in F tier until we, as a fandom, change the ship name to Junk or JK. Until then, she is F tier, but she'll go back to the top of A, potentially even S, if we can change that awful, awful ship name. Next up on the tier list is another shocking elimination this season. Damien, who I'll put above Millie in A tier. Damien was kind of another character that hasn't really changed much after the first season, but somehow he got better. He still retained his cowardly nature, which kind of weird since he got over his fears in the episode he was eliminated in the first season. But it kind of also wasn't a bad thing because it played to his advantage. He's a character that had his own arc while being alone and not really interacting with much other characters. He kind of just stayed to himself after Millie's elimination and sort of grew from it. He won a few immunities. An immunity? I don't remember if he won multiple. He won an immunity that I can confirm, being the merge challenge. And he found the immunity idol on his own, but he also lost it due to being paranoid from Julia's letters. And Julia took it from him. But that kind of I don't really have much to say about Damien. He Damien. Right, Raj. A tier. Still. Raj. The season kind of separated Raj and Wayne a little bit. Raj is definitely the smarter of the two, and I feel like this season established that, well, they're still both the dumb jock hockey bros, but Raj had some strategic moments, like removing his clothes to not get and putting them on a dummy so a dog wouldn't chase after him. His scent. There was also probably another thing that I can't think of right now. But they kind of just didn't do much to separate him from Wayne other than that and him being gay, which is a carryover from the first season. But it's not a bad thing. They were both comedic reliefs. They both worked. They're kind of in the same situation as Z on the comedic relief standpoint. Not much needed to really change for them to work. And that's fine. Raj gets an A. Which leaves us to our fourth place, Priya, who I will put above Ripper, actually. I think this is kind of... I think Priya's in the same spot. Emma moved down a little bit. Ripper moved way up. But yeah, Priya, I'm gonna be honest here, Priya and Caleb's relationship was not bad. It was not the worst thing about the season. The main problem with the whole prelim thing is that Priya ended up being part of the main plot for 2 seasons in a row, getting her first place in the first season and 4th in the second season, being eliminated 1 episode before the finale, and being one of 2 characters in the entire series to have a meaningful role in every single episode of both seasons. She kind of that kind of leads to a situation where she feels that she overstays her welcome. Cat. But Prelude itself is not a bad plot. It just should not have been the plot of the season directly following the first one. Priya needed some sort of break before she was a main focus character again, which is a problem that they commonly fall into with total drama. You see this with characters like Heather, Duncan, Gwen, Courtney in the first 3 seasons, and All-Stars getting really far in all the seasons, or playing a meaningful role if they only spend half a season, like Courtney with the first 2. They give too much focus to certain characters at times, and when you go into it season after season, watching the exact same character doing pretty much the exact same thing could get boring. Priya just needed a break season between her prelude plot and the plot with Millie. So, 3rd place. Which, if you look at the photo finish in the finale, Caleb is 3rd place. He was further from... No, never mind. That was Julia, actually. Julia was further from the... I'm dumb. Julia was further from the finish line. She remains an S tier. I think they went a little too hard on making her a strategic threat in this, after everyone knows that she's a threat and should not be trusted, but they did anyway. Especially Caleb, like... Priya... Julia being the main villain for 2 seasons in a row does and doesn't work. She was definitely the best person for the job of main villain in both seasons, but she also kind of overstays her welcome, similar to the Priya situation, basically. She's in every single episode and plays a meaningful role in every episode of both seasons. They probably could have switched MK to the main villain. Maybe even Caleb or someone else could have played the role of main villain this season, other than Julia. But it's also not necessarily a completely bad thing that Julia is the main villain. She was definitely played the game well enough for that. I don't know. Second place, Caleb is going in... You know what? Millie, I'm moving you down to B tier. Caleb goes to the bottom of A tier. Caleb was also a good character. I just wish he wasn't surgically attached to Priya for the whole season, and had at least one episode, at the very least one episode, completely on his own. But overall, the relationship was fine. The on and off dramas, it provided some entertainment in the last few episodes before the finale. But it also wouldn't have been that for much of anything if Priya had gone a little earlier. Overall, Caleb was a solid character, and he didn't end up feeling like Justin or Alejandro, like people would thought he was going to kind of be the pretty boy using his looks to get further in the game, which they sort of actually did, but it was completely unique with him having an actual relationship with Priya because of him trying to charm her into an alliance. I don't I don't know what direction their relationship will go in future seasons if they make future seasons, but like I think they ended up on an okay note. I don't know what else to say. I should have probably scripted this video first. But YOLO. And the season winner, Wayne, who I had previously put in A tier, as you saw at the start of the video. But where does he rank now? Well, he stays at the top of A tier. Yeah, shocking, I know. Wayne, I'm about to start a riot, but Wayne was a good winner for the season. Now, before you get your pitchforks and torches out and try to crucify me for even saying that, I think Wayne was a solid character. He didn't have much strategy, but he did do well in some challenges. He was entertaining, a joy to watch, and a genuine, like, for people call them the golden retriever type characters. Owen, Jeff Brody, Wayne. But out of all of them, Wayne is like the only one who I genuinely rooted for to win at some point. So it's not something I can really explain, but whatever they did with Wayne, whatever they did with Wayne worked. It worked. I was rooting for him to win. Genuinely wanted him to win at one point. And the final three for that season was really solid. And I liked all of them and would have liked all of them winning. We have Wayne as the winner, and that is fine. And it's fine if you wanted to see Caleb or Julia win, because it is just as valid. And yeah, they made, in a game sense, deserved it more, because they definitely put in a lot more work in challenges and strategy. But I think everyone in the season that made it to the final three did a good job in the season and deserved their spots in the finale. For one reason or another, meta or otherwise. I think Wayne is kind of the perfect meta winner pick for this season. Just having that guy, having so many people focused on strategy, social game, and winning immunities, just having the guy who was there with his buddy, having fun, not really caring about anything, somehow win it all. It works. Overall, for the season overall, I would say it's not a bad season. It's an okay season. It's definitely not as strong as season 1 was, and that comes down to the writing. I think both seasons are good, but they have their own strengths and weaknesses. Season 1 was definitely more focused on the plot and character development for this cast, while season 2 tried to focus more on the kinds of weird and wacky ways they can use these characters comedically. Which also, in a meta way, kind of plays into Wayne winning, being one of the 3 main comedic relief characters of the season. Both seasons of the reboot. Just for the sake of it, MK up there, she's still an F tier, but this is how it would be ranked if we change the ship name between Julia and MK to something much better than Julia. Can't even say it without choking. And that's my thoughts on the Total Drama Island reboot and its characters, and it's a good show. Make sure to support it so we can get more seasons, and then I can make more content, and I can do more. I need a script. I need to.